There comes a moment on the path of awakening that almost no one warns you about. It is not dazzling. It is not triumphant. It arrives quietly, after the first light breaks through the fog. And when it does, life no longer glitters the way it once did. At first, you think something must be wrong. The hunger that once propelled you forward, the drive to prove, to win, to be seen, fades like a fire that suddenly realizes it has no wood left to burn. You look around, and the world is still moving, people chasing, striving, performing, believing. But something inside you has stepped out of the game. You are still alive. You still eat, speak, and play your role. But the role no longer fits the body wearing it. It feels like standing backstage after the curtain has fallen, while everyone else still believes the play is going on. It is not despair. It is not depression. It is something subtler, more bewildering. A suspension between life and non-life, between self and absence. You are watching your old identity dissolve, and the mind, desperate to name the feeling, mistakes it for an ending. But what if it is not an ending at all? What if it is the space before a new kind of existence begins? We are told that awakening feels like clarity, like revelation, like stepping into light after centuries in darkness. Yet for many, it feels like the ground disappearing, like meaning itself collapsing in slow motion. The ambitions that once made sense begin to sound hollow. The stories you told yourself about who you are, what matters, what success means, lose their grip. You watch yourself from a distance, still performing the rituals of daily life, yet something in you is gone. The inner engine that once whispered, go, chase, achieve. You are not suicidal. You are post-survival. The survival program has shut down, and the nervous system has not yet learned another language. This is where the poetic idea of ego death stops being mystical and becomes physical. You feel it in the body. A slow, heavy reorientation of the nervous system. A silence beneath the skin that feels both terrifying and sacred. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung never romanticized awakening. He knew that when the old self dissolves, there is a long interval before a new one forms. The psyche tears down its scaffolding before it rebuilds, and during that dismantling, everything inside you goes quiet. You are left in a kind of waiting room between identities, halfway between the person you were and the one who has not yet arrived. From that place, even desire feels foreign. You do not long for anything, not because you are numb, but because the old cravings have lost their gravity. Nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels necessary. You can sense reality with brutal clarity, yet feel no appetite for it. It is awareness without hunger, presence without attachment, and that is the paradox. You are awake, and that is exactly why existence feels optional. Mystical traditions all describe this stage, though in different words. Buddhism calls it the dissolution of craving. Sufis speak of fana, the annihilation of personal will. Depth psychology calls it the collapse of the ego's organizing principle. Whatever the name, the experience is the same. The structure that once gave you direction collapses, and the psyche drifts in a vacuum. From the outside, you might look distant or apathetic, but inside you are encountering the raw truth of being without illusion. The will that once moved you through fear and desire has gone silent, not broken, just emptied. The body, trained for years to respond to pressure, reward, and threat, waits for signals that no longer arrive. But nothing is wrong. You are simply being rewired. The mind interprets stillness as failure because the ego was built to strive. When striving dies, panic appears. The mind calls it regression, but the deeper psyche calls it preparation. The system is deconditioning. It is unlearning its addiction to tension. The organism is remembering how to live without a whip of urgency. This is not depression. It is a transition, the death of compulsive becoming. For the first time, you are no longer running toward the next version of yourself. You are not fueled by fear or lack. You are just here, suspended in stillness. It feels empty because it is quiet. It feels bland because it is pure. It feels meaningless because meaning has not yet returned in its truer form. This phase has been called many names. The dark night of the soul, the desert, the neutral field. It is not punishment. It is the psyche clearing noise so that a deeper intelligence can rise. Jung described it as the withdrawal of projection. When you stop casting your meaning onto others, onto achievements, love, and imagined futures, the world seems to lose its glow. But what replaces that glow is not darkness. It is depth. Raw, undecorated depth. Even relationships begin to change. The urge to perform, to merge, to impress, to cling, all of it dissolves. You start seeing people without the lens of need. And it feels strangely lonely at first, because need was once the glue of connection. The reference points that shaped your reality have vanished, and you have not yet found new ones. But this is not the end of awakening. It is the midpoint. The sacred pause before rebirth. Eventually, something older than your ambition begins to stir. Something quieter, deeper, less desperate. It does not speak in the language of desire. It speaks in orientation. It moves you toward what feels honest, away from what feels false, without needing reasons. It is not the old fire of hunger. It is the warmth of alignment. You begin to notice faint shifts, a sensitivity to truth, a natural intolerance for pretense, a pull toward simplicity. There are no fireworks here. Only a calm sense that what once mattered does not, and what once felt ordinary now carries quiet holiness. This is the slow emergence of the self, the deeper organizing center of consciousness. The ego does not disappear. It steps down from command. It becomes a servant instead of a ruler. You no longer act to prove existence. You act because existence itself is enough. When that happens, the phrase "I do not want to exist" fades on its own. Not because life becomes thrilling again, but because existence no longer feels like a personal burden. It becomes participation, a rhythm you move with rather than against. You still feel fatigue, you still feel limitation, but the resistance softens. You stop arguing with being here, and that changes everything. This is the real integration, not a burst of bliss, not a permanent high. It is the slow shaping of a life that can hold the awareness you have found. The nervous system learns to move without panic. The heart learns to love without clinging. The mind learns to rest without collapsing. Meaning begins to return, not as ambition, not as fantasy, but as coherence, a subtle knowing of what feels true. You recognize it when an action feels clean, when a word leaves your mouth without inner resistance, when your body relaxes into something real. This meaning does not shout. It does not seduce. Awakening is not the escape from the world. It is the capacity to live in it without illusion. To see the machinery of life and still choose to move with grace inside it. And here lies the great paradox. The desire not to exist was never about ending life. It was about ending the false version of it. The mechanical living, the performing, the endless chase for significance. What dies is not your aliveness. What dies is the story of who you thought you needed to be. When that illusion falls, existence must be rediscovered, step by fragile step. Insight alone cannot rebuild you. Only rhythm can. Only time, embodiment, and patience. Slowly, the nervous system learns that it no longer needs to perform to survive. The heart discovers attachment that does not suffocate. The mind finds rest without retreat. And the will, once a weapon of striving, returns as something gentler, preference. You begin to choose again, not because you must, but because something inside you leans quietly toward life. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming what you were before fear told you who to be. It is not perfection. It is coherence. It is the end of the war between your inner and outer worlds. It is the day you realize that peace was never elsewhere. It was waiting beneath the noise of becoming. So if you find yourself in that still, hollow space, where life feels optional, where meaning feels out of reach, where the desire not to exist whispers quietly at night, know this: you are not disappearing. You are being rewritten. Listen, and do not rush. Let the silence do its work. Because on the other side of that silence, existence will return, not as duty, but as devotion. You will still walk through the same world, but the steps will sound different. You will still speak, but your words will carry less noise and more truth. You will still love, but not out of fear of being alone. And perhaps most beautifully, you will no longer need to leave yourself in order to live. You will have come home.